हम लोग हमेशा बात करते हैं कौन सा एक्टर सेल्फ मेड है. आज का कॉन्वर्सेशन ऐसा रहा है राइट कि कौन सा एक्टर सेल्फ मेड है. इनके पिगी बैकिंग होती है कि नहीं, इनका प्रिविलेज है कि नहीं. We rarely talk about directors who come from no privilege, and here we have somebody who's trying to make her mark. So welcoming you to Lucknow, how have you been?
First of all, thank you for the welcome and hi Lucknow. I want to apologize first of all. I can understand Hindi. I'm from Kerala
That's okay.
originally. I can speak very fluent Malayalam, but Hindi I can only understand. But I will, try and be as inclusive as possible. But I'm so happy that we happen to be here together, so we can finally have this conversation.
I just want to tell you that so when I do these interviews for a Telugu publication that I do it for, I have learned one line which is called Nenu Niku Chala Premistunnanu, which is like I love you all a lot, and I want you to say that to Lucknow in Malayalam.
Okay. എനിക്ക് നിങ്ങളെ എല്ലാവരും ഒത്തിരി ഇഷ്ടമാണ്. Means I like you all with all my heart.
I think even Lucknow will give you back that love because Lucknow has been giving back. Lucknow, Kanpur have got love from both of you, both the cities, and loved it. Firstly, I want to ask you that when we talk about privileges, you didn't have any. Did you always want to become a filmmaker? Were you always veering towards a certain kind of content?
So talking about privileges in the sense that, firstly, this film is a British film, and it is in, English language with subtitles. So the space is very different to Indian cinema as such. Talking about privileges, I mean, I have been lucky enough. I do have, I've been in Kerala. In the Malayalam industry, I do have some family members in the industry, but I never really pursued that route because I moved to UK when I was 10, and I did my studies there. I did my film schooling there, and I was very far from the industry as such. And I also had this thing that I wanted to explore. I think it's important when you make your first film, especially, that you make it about something that's very personal to you, and because then you can really breathe the energy into the characters. And I think it's also important to not rush it. Sometimes I hear people who is ready with the script and they want to make the film the next month. I think sometimes going through some hardships can really give you that experience and that knowledge that can really help you withstand such difficult situations. So with that in mind, I went through being a runner, an assistant director. I've been a driver on set, cleaner on set, mostly all in UK.
Whether you have the privilege or not, to make yourself the privileged is the most important thing. That I feel that, like you said rightfully, that if you have your heart in the right place when you do your first film. Kerala is known to be the most literate state in the country, if I'm not wrong. सबसे ज़्यादा पढ़ाकू लोग वहाँ से आते हैं. मुझे कहा गया है कि केरला में पढ़ाई इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. यार तो कैलकाटा में भी इंपॉर्टेंट. मेरी माँ बैठी रहती थी मेरे पीछे कि पढ़ाई करो. तो आई वांट टू नो दैट हाउ गुड वर यू इन स्टडीज़.
I guess I'm okay. I wouldn't say, I was the smartest, or I wouldn't say that, I think for me, because we had done it I studied in UK mostly, and it has a very different culture to India. In UK, long as you're keeping busy, that's enough. But talking about that, the writer of the film is my sister Neeta. She's a chartered accountant who's quit her chartered accountancy to become a writer. I also did 1 year of chartered accountancy, which didn't really, I think it was probably the unhappiest year of my life. And then, I quit that and went into film. So in terms of studies, we'd always pursued that. And I think it's only fair, for parents and family to be worried that, please study something and, be on the safe side. So I think always continue, pursue your studies. And when you get that calling that, okay, from now on, film is all I want to do full time, or art is all I want to do full time, and great, go ahead with it. So it's always good to have some education to fall back on, but I think happiness is also very important.
Quitting a job of a chartered accountant is also kicking a lot of money, and art is so uncertain that you never know whether, despite being talented, you will ever make it. And after you make it, you never know whether you will be able to sustain it. Was it a risk when you did that?
I mean, as we talk, it's still a risk right now, I'll be honest. But I think the way I see things is I've always, for the last 10 years, I've been in the film industry either as a runner or as an AD. And then, like, the last 3 years, I've been an associate director. Of course, you go through phases of stability and instability. But one thing I used to keep thinking is, in the beginning years, I used to do a lot of film work voluntarily for free. I would never recommend anyone do that because I think you should be paid for the work you do. Everyone should be credited and should be paid for the work you do. But earlier on in the years, I did do a lot of voluntary work, and I used to think if I can do this work for free and enjoy it, then probably this is what I should do. So that's the motivation.
I'll tell you something. When you said this, I got reminded of her. My mother would know. So I used to work with this really amazing lady, Sarita Tanwar, who was my first editor. She was the editor of DNA after us when I was working with DNA in Mumbai. And I call her my Mumbai mother because she's taken care of me, and she's my mentor, and she'll always be. So this is for you, Sarita ma'am. Sarita ma'am had once told me that never do anything you do really well for free.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. And I think, sometimes, especially early on in your career, it's okay to do a few days of voluntary work to understand and to learn. But I think there is a thin line between being exploited and learning as well. So, and I understand it's a very, tricky industry. It can be. But apparently, according to, the research that's done within like the US, UK, and many European places, apparently the film industry is at its most stable form now than ever because of the need for content. And apparently in the future years to come is going to be a lot more stable. So, I got reminded of this quote one of the people in UK said. They said, back in the days, they'd say, I wanted to be in film, but then my parents made me become a doctor. So they're envisioning for a day where they say, I wanted to be a doctor, but film is so stable, they got me into that.
Yeah,
so let's
fab.
hope for that.
But when you talk about exploitations, when you don't have anybody to fall back on, people often like manipulate you or try to like exploit you in different ways. You exploit your talent and creativity. Has that ever happened where you felt like I've had friends whose stories have been stolen, and a lot of other things, like they've been promised films and they've waited for years and years and years doing these odd jobs and then not really getting it back and not really getting it in time. They've lost hope, given up. Some of them have given up, some of them are still trying at it. All filmmakers, huh? And I hope they'll become good filmmakers someday.
Absolutely. I think, we've all had a fair share of our own stories where, something's not worked out the way it should. And it can be very disheartening, like the amount of times I felt so low because something didn't happen. But now I sort of, I try to take everything in life a day at a time. And I think one thing I can advise to new aspiring filmmakers, people in the industry is, if possible and if you have the chance to, put everything in writing, in kind of a contract form. Many a times I've gotten into tricky situations, when everything's kind of like verbal, kind of like, okay, I'll do it, or, you do that. But if you put it in writing, then later it's easier for you to go back to. And I don't think anyone should ever be embarrassed to ask for what you're owed or what you've worked for. Because a lot of people, and I think maybe it's an Indian thing as well, we feel like, oh, I don't know, we shouldn't ask that. But, it's important you just go ahead and ask, and sometimes things may go wrong, and sometimes you could be working with your best friend and maybe in the future it doesn't work out so great, but if you have everything in writing, you're protected, so is your friend as well. So that's probably the best way to go about it. And I do think everything happens for a reason. Like the silliest example, I had a very important event I was trying to make happen for today, and for some issues it didn't happen. And a week ago I was so sad that I really put a lot of effort in for the event on the 13th, and this happened. And 3 days ago Sunyana calls me and says, we want to close with your film, can you come? And if that event had happened, then I wouldn't be sitting here with you, and I wouldn't see the love that Lucknow has to shower upon us. So maybe everything does happen for a reason.
Absolutely, everything happens for a reason, and a good one at that, because I feel that when God closes one door, He's actually preparing you for the other door that He's about to open for you. Was this the first film you wanted to make?
This is the first film that we wanted to make, and it is the first film we made. Of course, we kind of had other scripts in the pipeline too, but this film was very special for us because it's based on the lives of illegal immigrants or undocumented migrants living in UK, showing a perspective of London that we are not, very familiar with. Even, like forget here, even people, when we have had the international premieres in US or Canada, they weren't very aware of that. So we knew this circle because we were brought up amongst these people, and we got to get first hand information. So because we knew this topic so well, and as we researched, we understood there is a lot more to it. We just wanted to start with something we very much knew, but I'll be honest, it took many years. In 2000, I think almost 2016, Neeta started writing the script. And by 2019 and 2020, I met our producer Mohan Nadar at the production headquarters, who was very sweet and because this is a story that's not really, it doesn't really shout out, commercial film. But now that the film is made, there is some elements that keeps the audience gripping, but it's not really, it doesn't have a song in front of London Eye, for example. It shows something else. So from 2016 and now you look at it, it's 2023. And, that's a lot of years. And we are hoping, in the future we can make films faster. But I think every film and every story has its time, and who are we as humans to rush it,
Like you said that it's about undocumented migrants from India. You said that this story is very close to your heart and it's very personal. In what way is it personal?
So I was 10 and my sister was, I was 10, 11 and my sister was 18 when we moved to UK. We moved with our parents and, like every young girl moving abroad, I thought, I'm going to have all these luxury cars parked outside and it's going to be huge houses, and I blame, all... 100%. I really thought, there's going to be, like my sister thought there's going to be Hrithik Roshan at her university with a sports car. And, you can't blame her because that's what we're used to. And it was, my God, the opposite of that. When we initially moved in, we stayed in a shared apartment, which is shown in the movie, some inspirations. We didn't have a car. My sister ended up not even going university and working and studying at the same time. My school, I thought, it's going to be all posh and British kids, and we had one person in the entire town who was non-Indian, I think, because we were in a very Indian-centric town of London, and I just thought like, this is so different. This is not what I expected. And in that community, we got to know, a few, not family friends, like friends of families, and a lot of people who were almost hiding because they didn't have any, they didn't have any proper papers, and they were working for £1, £2 an hour. Although in Indian terms, it seems a little much. It seems good. In UK terms, it's like, modern day human slavery. It literally is. And so they were sort of, invisible. They chose that life where they're just, working for very meager wages. And we thought, what would happen if somebody in that community goes missing? So the entire story is about Raghu, played by Adil Hussain, and Meera, his daughter, played by Nimisha Sajain. What happens when his daughter goes missing and how he finds her is it's the backdrop. And of course there's a lot of family emotions, and at the end of the day it's the father's love is there, the daughter yearning for her father, that's all there. But we just felt so intrigued that in the illegal immigrant community, one person can even get killed and you can't
Nobody would know.
Nobody would know because you're pretty much like footprints on water, you leave nothing behind. And to think that there's millions of those in the UK and around the world, and we wanted to explore why somebody from India would leave this amazing country and choose that, and that's where it was the whole concept was born.
I just realized about the whole idea behind the title. And it is outstanding, like Footprints on Water. Yeah, I was just asking somebody like, why is it called Footprints on Water? Because I read the synopsis and stuff, and I do feel that parental emotion is possibly the most common emotion in all of us, right? Like in parents and in kids, everybody is attached to their parents, at least most of us are, who have not had a traumatic childhood. But like you rightly said, that when a person from the illegal immigrant community goes missing. It's not even documented because, in fact, their identity is only not documented. Did you know of people who have been through this? How did you deal with that and like discuss with them? And did you at any point like break down hearing their stories?
I mean, for sure, it was very emotional. I think even the filming was quite emotional, but I think I just learned to park the scene on set and go to the hotel room and just worry about what's happening the next day. That's how I dealt with it. So Neetha did extensive research thanks to the help of a couple of immigrant charities who supports illegal immigrants, and their stories were, I think the movie doesn't do justice to the real stories of what happens to illegal immigrants. We had family friends who chose to live illegally. We did research a lot of people that we had to keep anonymous because of their security and safety, with the help of the charity. So it's all documented and it's all done through the right ways. But learning more about their stories, and one of the elements when you watch the film, some of the elements were things that were new to us too. Because when we dug deeper, we realized it's unstoppable. There is just so much never-ending things that kept coming out. So that was emotional for us, because we didn't think that people we were possibly living amidst were going through that. And once we screened the film in London, there were a lot of people who just sat on their seats and they felt really kind of lost, that they could walk out into the street and there is this community around them and they had no clue. So this is why it's personal. And of course, even today I know a few people who are undocumented migrants, but they chose that. And to, with all due respect to them, if after everything that's what you choose, of course you have the human right to make your decision. But the things they have to give up along the way is something we've highlighted.
And it's a lot. The things that they have to give up is a lot. If you have to give up your entire identity, it is possibly your core that you're giving up on. I want to ask you that when we talk about films like this, my first question would have been this, but we got into a different conversation because this was needed, and I'm glad that we did. How has your relationship been with your parents?
I think the relationship I've had with both me and my sister, I believe we've had very similar, relationships with our parents, because I think, film is a very honest platform. And when I'm asked questions, I am as honest as I can be. And I think, of course, as a teenager, you go through emotions and moments where you don't quite understand why, but you may be quite angry at your parents for whatever reason, and then later you realize, okay, they knew better, and then later the parents realize maybe the kids knew better too. Just FYI, that is also there, because parents are never given a manual on how to raise the children, and we are not really given a manual on how to deal with our parents as well. So it's very complex, and I find that whenever I watch anything on, even it can be a love story, but the parent-son or parent-daughter relationship is inevitably there. It's always, it has to be there, because that's what makes these stories and these characters true. So I think one of the things I was really annoyed with was, why did we move to the UK? Because in Kerala, I'll be honest, it was amazing, it was lovely, everything was so green, everything was so beautiful, and I love my school, and I had solid set of friends, and I was, just uprooted and put somewhere where people didn't even like me initially. And, I didn't know how to speak the language. Now I'm speaking very good English, but, at 10, 11, where I just knew few English words, and, I would try and talk to people, and nobody wants to be my friend because I'm not cool enough. It took me a good couple of years to get out of it, and that was very traumatic. So during that time, I used to constantly question, why me? Like, why didn't they even leave me behind? But now that I'm older and looking at the opportunities that it's given to me, and more importantly, it gave me and my sister a drive and a passion to tell stories, because I felt the story about this community is something that people don't want to discuss. I don't know, maybe it's because there is no market for it, or I don't know if it's because, some things are left unsaid. So that really struck a chord in me, and about a decade ago, we said we want to make the story, and I thought, that gave me the fire to become what I am today. If it wasn't for the move, if it wasn't for my parents, moving me, then I probably wouldn't have found my passion, and I probably would have been, behind some books and accounts thinking, why is life so unfair? Maybe. So maybe, I'm very happy to them, and they gave me the biggest gift of life, which is a purpose to live. So it's okay for now. Thank you.
Because you said that in every love story, we always see this parent-child dynamic. We have always, like you said rightly, that Bollywood has always made us believe things that we are not supposed to believe. I feel growing up Bollywood, even till date, not just Bollywood films, प्रॉब्लम जो है वो ये है कि हमने ना लव को एक नज़रिए से देखना ही सिखाया गया हमको. लाइक इट्स ऑलवेज अ यूनी डायमेंशनल अप्रोच टूवर्ड्स लव, दैट लव कैन ओनली हैपन बिटवीन टू पार्टनर्स. And now we are changing the dynamic and saying the partners can be any gender, but it has to happen between two partners. I feel my biggest love story is with my mother, and I think any mother's love story, my mother's biggest, of course, my mother's biggest love story is with my father only, but with her two sons as well, and her daughter and her grandchild at this point. नीना जी ने बोला था उस इंटरव्यू में कि the only love that exists in the world is between a parent and a child. Everything else comes with a hint of lust and a bit of conditions. And I completely stand by that. What you said is so beautiful, that with your mom, dad, and between moms, like parents and kids, there is no manual. We just are conditioned beautifully by God to love them. And they are conditioned to just sacrifice and just love us. There's no condition वहाँ पे. उसके अलावा और कोई condition होता नहीं है. Do you think that this Bollywoodized idea of love should go away? Like, because this is also a love story between a father and a daughter, who's a father who's actually loves his daughter so much that he is in quest for her. Don't you feel that?
So I think, you've explained it so well, and it's so beautifully put. So I think that I need a second to sort of snap out of that. I think sort of, from just a very, because I know I'm just so small. My thoughts are so small compared to the whole big world. But I do believe in my perspective. I feel like this love that you discussed, the one that doesn't really come without a condition or manual. So like I think Footprints, the journey of Footprints is something that taught me so much about unconditional love. Of course, the love between your parents and your people, like who are related to you, who raise you up. That's wonderful. That's beautiful. But I also happen to see, like a love between a random stranger well-wisher of yours. How many times have you gone somewhere where somebody you don't even know well, but is rooting so much for you, and is really
at the Jagran Film Festival, the entire team. Thank you, guys.
Exactly. I think
and everybody here, because I don't personally know anybody in Lucknow or in Kanpur, and I must tell you कि when I was starting off with the Jagran Film Festival, I was extremely nervous. I have given nervous calls to my mother saying that, oh my God, it's a live audience. What if I fumble? What if I make some mistake? But everybody just loved me, and everybody loved me so much that they didn't care about me making mistakes, which is unconditional, right? So thank you, guys.
So to add to that, I met a lot of people who just wanted to help me with a few things, or a team member, without expecting anything in return. And I think, I've got a wonderful sister, my parents. I've got a wonderful support system in my partner and my best friends, that I sometimes feel like, I think sometimes I can be a little handful to deal with, I'll be honest, because I go through so much with such an, like every day something is changing, and I find that for them to, especially my chosen friends who are like my family, for them to forgive me for my, whether it may be ignoring them or not being really there for them, and for them to still root the film, which is so much, so much beyond me and them, and for them to really believe in the story of what is happening, and for them to really respect art. I find that it's just so magical, that love in so many ways, when it's unconditional, in the sense when you don't expect anything in return, it's so pure. And with what you said, like a mother's love for her son or daughter, or a daughter's love for, her father or mother, is so unconditional, is so pure. But if that can be put into into real life scenarios, like between friends, between us, between, you know, the festival, for example, like, you know, we wish the best for the festival, we wish the best for all festivals. If that kind of dynamic were to happen where, you know, you're not expecting anything from me in return and I'm not expecting anything from you in return, I think it's just so beautiful, and that's exactly what happened. And the answer to your question regarding the Bollywood love, I do agree in believing that, you know, yes, there is love and there's an element of lust, and, you know, something is something like, you know, something is sexualized or not. I think, you know, why can't it be, you know, love between two best friends who choose to be in each other's families, you know?
And you know, I don't know how many people will agree, but given where we are heading, I always believe that this generation, when we are 70, will have better friends than partners.
For sure. I'm sure about
It's a fact. Do I see somebody with me 44 years from today? I doubt. But I do see my friends, like you rightfully said. Because, you know, there's a beautiful thing that has happened. I don't know कितने लोग यहाँ पे मानेंगे. कहीं ना जो हमसे प्यार करते हैं, मतलब ये सब आप जो मुझे देख रहे हो या इनको देख रहे हो या कोई भी एक्टर को देखते हो आप ऑन स्क्रीन या फिर सोशल मीडिया पे सामने भी, you have loved us from what you've seen from the surface. You know, you don't really know me, you don't really know my insecurities, my ugly side. Everybody has a good, bad, ugly side, and unfortunately it comes out only in front of people we love. And our friends, our family members and our loved ones always love the more complex side of us. Everybody else actually loves the simpler, happier version, which is very easy to love. The complex version is not easy to be loved, but they still love. That's why they are our friends and they are loved ones.
That's very beautifully put. So yeah, so let's cheers to, you know, love without conditions, and you know, just coexisting together, respecting each other's imperfections and perfections, and being happy and doing what you love.
Absolutely. Touche to that. Thank you guys. Thank you, Lucknow.